the Brian Burns news of last night now piques my interest because the Josh Allen price tag seems pretty hefty. Austen, I don't know if we thought it would be as hefty as this. I think it works out to about $28 million a year for Brian Burns. The reports this morning, it's a $141 million deal over 5 years. Last night it was a 5-year $150. There's a lot of money up front in the first 3 years of it. Is this going to be the baseline, the outline for what the Jaguars and Josh Allen's camp are going to try to knock out? He is under the franchise tag. This could take months to really work out, or it could take days now that we have a framework from a guy like Brian Burns.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of $28 million a year, I mean, that's going to put Brian Burns right now. He's second in terms of average per year in the NFL. So we see the market, resetting a little bit. And I was under the caveat, listen, regardless of what happens in the market, like we know Josh Allen is ahead of Brian Burns. Like that's a fact. I think in terms of numbers, I think in terms of intrigue, Josh Allen is a step ahead of Brian Burns. So if Brian Burns is making $28.2 per year, well then Josh Allen, welcome to the $29-30 million a year club. If I'm Josh Allen and I see that deal go down, like obviously I'm licking my fingers. I'm excited. It begs the question of if you were Josh Allen and the Jaguars and everything, and if you somehow could have got a deal done before that Brian Burns deal, how much would that have benefited you? Because I'll be honest, I wouldn't have paid $28 million a year for Brian Burns. Like he's making more than TJ Watt now, which, okay, I mean, TJ Watt will eventually get paid again, and that's the way that it goes. I understand that. But Brian Burns is the second highest paid edge rusher right now in the NFL. This is over Joey Bosa, over TJ Watt, over Myles Garrett. Now, is he the second best pass rusher in the NFL or the edge rusher in the NFL? I don't think so. But the market says that he is. So if that's the case then, and I'm Josh Allen's people, I say, okay, $28 million a year, I'm going to need probably at least 30. And that'll make Josh Allen the second highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. And if we're talking about $30 million a year, guess what, Brent? That might take some time to get done.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions about this, and this is interesting to me because, again, there's an outline here now, and I want to know from your vantage point, Austen, how much you think Burns and Josh Allen are kind of comped, because it's different. Burns has been maybe a bit more consistent. He's got I think they have about the same amount of sacks in their career, but it's Josh coming off a mega year. I mean, Brian Burns coming off an 8-sack year. Josh Allen's coming off a 17.5 sack season. So it's a weird kind of one to say, oh, yeah, he should get this amount or maybe $1 million more. It feels like he should get like a gazillion more compared to what happened just in 2023. How do you view it? Are they comparable? And maybe, again, a little edge to Josh just based off the big year he's coming off?
Yeah, I mean, very comparable. Brian Burns, you look at, and once again, sack numbers aren't everything, but just for the sake of the exercise, 7.5, 9, 9, 12.5, 8, right? That's pretty consistent in terms of Brian Burns. And then you go to Josh Allen. Obviously, he had that 10.5 sack season to start his rookie campaign, 2.5, 7.5, 7, and then the monumental 17.5. Yes, very comparable, Brent, at the end of the day. Obviously, in terms of age, in terms of experience, comparable in their own right. But that's 17.5. I mean, that's the world of difference right there, because you're only as good as your last season. Not to say that Brian Burns underperformed last year, but going from 12.5 sacks into 8 sacks on the Carolina Panthers team, that was probably underwhelming a little bit. But to say you got 17.5 sacks, Brent, that's cash money. There's no way around that. So once again, if Brian Burns right now is the second highest paid edge rusher in the NFL, I have a hard time saying that Josh Allen's going to be making like the Nick Bosa money of $34 million a year, whatever that is, something crazy. But I have Josh Allen being the second highest paid edge rusher in the NFL.
All right, there's another part of this, and this goes back to a lot of conversation last week, and we're talking about, hey, why can't they get the deal done? Why aren't they talking to Josh Allen's people earlier? Why couldn't they get the deal done with Josh and then tag Ridley? that like the Giants did that last year with Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. Well, what I tried to say a lot of times last week, and both for Ridley and really for Josh Allen, is they were in really good positions. Not just last week, by the way. Over the last couple of weeks and ever since the offseason started, they were in premier positions, coming off a 17.5 sack season. And obviously the position got even better for Calvin Ridley, being a light receiver market in free agency, and then other guys tagging the players that could have become free agents. And Austen, this is exactly why I think this deal is hard to get done, because it's not that the Jags didn't want to get it done by last Tuesday at 4 o'clock. It's that most likely the Josh Allen representation was like, we ain't doing that. We're going to wait and see what happens with a guy like Brian Burns. You would want to do that if you're his agency, if you represent Josh Allen. This makes perfect sense. I would stall that thing, see what Brian Burns gets, and now my dollars just went up. Just from you and I talking last week or the last couple weeks about Josh Allen, we thought this could be north of $25 million a year. No doubt. 26 million, maybe you get up to 27 million. We weren't thinking 28, 29, or 30 million. So once this deal drops, once the cap number goes up, well, that gives more room to negotiate now, more room to go get some more for a guy like Josh Allen and his camp. So it makes sense to me that the Jaguars and the Josh Allen side of things couldn't come to an agreement last week.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it does. If you're Josh Allen's people, you were in no rush. I thought you had a little bit of a bargaining chip in saying that, hey, if you all really want to sign Calvin Ridley or you want to take Calvin Ridley, you better pay us up front. Now whether that was part of the conversation, whether the Jaguars offered him to try to get that Calvin Ridley franchise tag, maybe we'll never know. But obviously now it shows that waiting patiently, waiting your turn, seeing Brian Burns make all his money is only going to help Josh Allen and his people now make their money as well.